The economic impact of the corona crisis could indeed be just as severe as the GFC, but that doesn't mean that the response should be the same, because their causes are very different. The GFC was an economic crisis. It was a crisis of the system. The corona crisis is a health emergency with potentially dire economic consequences. From an economic point of view, it's not a crisis of the system, it's a crisis to the system. And when it's over, yes, there'll be some weak businesses that will have gone to the wall, but the basic economic architecture will be no weaker than it was before. Arguably, the survival of the fittest could even make it a little stronger. Hence, what's needed now are measures to get us through the crisis, not necessarily measures to change the economic system. In that sense, the Prime Minister is dead right to say what's needed should be either temporary or something that would be good in otherwise good circumstances, and that it's just merely brought forward because extra economic activity is needed now. As I said the other night, bad policy doesn't become good policy just because we have a crisis on our hands. All the crisis does is make good policy more urgent. It's been instructive to watch Labor's contortions over the past week. Yesterday, the Shadow Treasurer said if this really was a crisis bigger than the GFC, then the stimulus package had to be even bigger than it was then. And of course, Labor's Jim Chalmers would say that. After all, he was Wayne Swan's main economic advisor when Labor launched its disastrous second stimulus package in February 2009, a $42 billion cash splash with borrowed money that gave us pink bats that caught fire in people's roofs, cash for clunkers, and the ludicrously overpriced and often unnecessary school halls that have done nothing to improve education standards in this country. Indeed, we've gone backwards. You see, I remember all of this because I was there at the time. Indeed, I was the secretary to Shadow Cabinet, so I was in the room when the discussions took place, and I took the official minutes the last time the stimulus debate ran hot in Canberra. Others might have forgotten the history here, but I haven't. And for the record, the Coalition opposed only the second stimulus package, not the first, because they said at the time the second stimulus was badly thought through, a cash splash with borrowed money, that it was too much too soon, that it was a panicked response, and they were proven right. 4 months earlier, however, in October 2008, the Coalition had shown bipartisan support for the first stimulus package, the initial $10 billion spend, because it put more money in the hands of people who needed it most and who would more likely spend it quickly when the economy needed it. And that's what must happen here again. Another short, sharp boost that will help the industries most affected by the coronavirus hit. Hospitality and tourism are too, and will help people whose income is suddenly but temporarily squeezed as the fallout from China's shutdown in factories continues. But not spending that saddles us with more long-term ongoing expenditure. So modest one-off cash payments for people doing it tough, fair enough. The temporary relaxation of rules regarding access to unemployment benefits, again, fair enough. Something like the exceptional circumstances farm income support payments, only now for people in, say, travel and tourism, again, I reckon that's fair enough. And I'm always in favour of tax cuts and economic infrastructure spending, so bring all of that forward by all means. But permanent increases in welfare payments, like those Labor is pushing to now increase the dole, well, no way. That just makes it harder for poorer people to get into work and adds permanently to the already heavy burden on middle-income taxpayers. In the end, crisis or not, everything we spend battling the coronavirus and its economic contagion must be paid back. And all of us, regardless of our politics, want Australia to avoid a recession here. But there are limits to what government can and should do in the face of external shocks. The last thing Australia needs at this time would be a stimulus package that permanently weakens our economy in an attempt to avoid short-term pain.